Hello, government students. Today we're going to provide an introduction to the United States Constitution. We're going to look at the basic structure of the Constitution and give an overview of what's covered in each of the articles of the Constitution. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, the Constitution can be divided up into basically three parts. We have the Preamble, followed by the Articles, and then the Amendments. And of course, amendments are changes to the Constitution. The Preamble, simply stated, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We've looked at this preamble several times this semester, and basically it is the mission statement of our government. The purpose of our government is stated here in the preamble, and then the rest of the Constitution, the articles and the amendments, give the details of how these goals, this mission of our government, are going to be realized. So, that's the preamble, followed by the articles. Article 1 is the legislative branch, Article 2 the executive branch, Article 3 the judicial branch. We're going to spend the bulk of the rest of this semester looking at these three articles. But there is more to the Constitution than just these three articles. We also have Article 4, which defines the relationship between the states and between the states and the national government. States must recognize licenses and acts of other states. So, for example, I was married in Illinois. If I moved to another state, whatever state I moved to must still recognize my marriage, which happened in Illinois, as being legitimate in any other state. Same things like a teacher's license. I can move to another state and I still have a license to teach. Now, I might have to have an updated license to teach in another state, but my license basically doesn't cease to exist in Illinois because I moved. Again, I might have to take an additional test or something to be certified to teach in the other state. But licenses such as this do carry over to other states. States must also maintain a republican form of government. A republic is simply a representative democracy, so states must maintain a representative democracy or a republican form of government. They cannot be an authoritarian, dictatorial little unit within the United States. Article 5 deals with the amendment process, how the Constitution can be changed, and we'll get into the details of that in just a moment. Article 6 basically defines the law of the land. The law of the land consists of the Constitution, then statutory law, which are laws that are passed by Congress, statutes in other words, and then treaties. And it also states that the federal government remains supreme over state governments. Okay, so what does all this mean? Well, first of all, the order I just provided to you is important. If a statute or statutory law should be in conflict with the Constitution will prevail. The Constitution is the top dog here. And anything that is in contradiction to the Constitution will be null and void. Then we have our statutory law, then treaties, and finally the laws that are passed by the states. Any state law that should be in conflict with any of the items above it on this list will be considered unconstitutional and void. And the last article is Article 7, which basically details how the Constitution was to go into effect. Of course, Article 7 is no longer relevant because our Constitution has been in effect now for over 130 years or so, 140 years. Yeah, Article 7 is really irrelevant today. Okay, I do want to talk about the amendments a little bit, or at least the process. The last section of the Constitution is the amendments. There are 27 of them. The first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights, as we already know. And the last amendment became law in 1992. We actually looked at that last amendment a few weeks ago, which was the one that was initiated by the young man Gregory Watson down in Texas, who noticed that this amendment, which had never been passed as a part of the Bill of Rights back in the 1780s and 1790s, he liked it. And he managed to convince enough states that that should still be a part of the Constitution. So that was the last one. Went into effect in 1992, even though it was first proposed in about 1790. pretty fascinating story. Okay, let's look at how to amend the Constitution. The amendment process, again, is defined in Article 5, and there's actually two ways to amend the Constitution, and each way involves two steps. So, let's get started. First of all, in the first way that you can do it, 2/3 of the members of the House and the Senate must approve of the amendment, and then 3/4 of the state legislatures must approve of the amendment. So to get the process started, it takes 2/3 of the national government, the Congress, and it is 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And once it gets past that very, very high threshold, then it's an even higher threshold to get 3/4 of the state legislatures to approve it. So that's the first way. Or the second way we can do it is 2/3 of the state legislatures call for a constitutional convention to consider an amendment. And then, once that convention is convened in the various states, when 3/4 of the states ratifying conventions approve of the amendment, it will go into effect. It will become a part of the Constitution. We've had 27 amendments, as stated before. 26 of those amendments were passed in the first way that I just described, where the process started in the Congress and then moved to the state legislatures. Only one amendment, the 21st Amendment, happened this second way, where it began with state legislatures and then to a constitutional convention process. The one amendment that did use this second method of passing it was the 21st, which is the amendment which repealed prohibition. You remember the 18th Amendment outlawed the production and sale of alcoholic beverages in the United States back in 1920, I believe. And that 19th Amendment was then the 18th Amendment was repealed by the 21st Amendment, and that was about 12, 13 years later. And again, this is the only one of the amendments that happened in this method. And I believe it was probably because a lot of the people in Congress simply didn't want to take a stand on that issue. It was a rather controversial move to repeal prohibition, and they left it up to the states to take care of that. And with that, our presentation is over. You better check Canvas. There may be an assignment there. I'm not 100% sure. And you guys have a wonderful day.